Welcome back, everybody. We're here for episode 14 of the Mariners Deep Dive podcast. Your host, as always, I am Luke Westfall. We are with co-host Jacob Westfall. Make sure, as always, you are following us on our Instagram, Mariners Deep Dive podcast, and Twitter, MC Deep Dive Pod, so that you can keep up with us when we don't have an episode out, and so that you can keep up on when the next episode is coming out and all related content. Today we have a couple of series to recap. We are one game a little bit late here with the Rays game, the first game of the Rays series today. And so we're getting it to you now, but obviously in a MLB season, it's much more of a condensed schedule with games happening right after each other. So it's harder to squeeze them in, but we get these recaps to you as quickly as we can, as often as we can. Today, as well as recapping the Rangers and Royals series, which the Mariners had a lot of success. We will also be talking about some transactions, some news, as always, as well as a more in-depth look at where the Mariners stand currently, and then quickly previewing the upcoming 9-game road trip. But we will start with one quick piece of news here for the Mariners as well as the MLB, affecting everyone here. It's not necessarily a rule, but a new thing, you could just say. We'll just say thing. But there's a new thing in place here for the MLB. As you may already know, we've mentioned in previous episodes, the MLB had expanded the rosters for MLB teams to 28 for the month of April, which was going to end May 2nd. It still is going to end May 2nd and go back to 26. However, in a normal season, there would be a maximum amount of pitchers you could have on a team, which would be 13, which is half of the roster spots. Of course, you could have less. You can have as many position players as you want, but it has been 14 up to this point. The maximum amount of pitchers, just for, safety and, the late spring training, shortened spring training. They were allowing you to carry extra pitchers so you could have extra arms for guys not throwing as many innings. Well, the deadline that the max amount of pitchers shrinking back from 14 to 13 is being extended from May 2nd to May 29th. So the Mariners will, along with all the rest of the teams, be allowed to carry still 14 pitchers if they see fit. However, they still will have to shrink their roster down to 26 by May 2nd. So we'll see how they decide to work that out. Some Mariners transactions going on. The Mariners earlier, pretty much right after we recorded our last episode, had to make some unfortunate COVID moves. We mentioned a few of them with like Haniger and Luis Torrens. They had to make another one, so they put Sewald on the COVID list. We'll talk about him in a second with Haniger potentially coming back soon. They decided to call up Penn Murphy from AAA. He has still yet to pitch, and when he does, if he does, before Sewald comes back, it would be his MLB debut. He's 27-year-old who spent a lot of time in the Mariners minor league system. Mariners also signed a minor league free agent, a right-handed pitcher, Jackson Sigmund, 26-year-old who spent his whole career in the low A and double A levels. They also made a few trades. The first one was acquiring a player, Stuart Fairchild, an outfielder from the Arizona Diamondbacks. We traded cash for him, which could be as little as $1, could be as much as however much they want to give up. But pretty much it's just a way of acquiring him before he hits waivers, because he was DFA'd by the Diamondbacks. Anyways, he slots right into AAA for kind of just a depth piece-ish thing. He's had 15 at-bats in his major league career. He's got 2 hits, no home runs, a couple of RBIs. And he really has not done anything so far in his MLB career to this point. 26 years old, a young 26, just 40 days into that age. So we'll see how that goes. It does say here that he's on the 40-man roster, so that's an interesting one. Could potentially be another option if we ever need to call up another outfielder. But I don't know. We'll see how that works out and see how he plays. And in a corresponding move to make room on the AAA roster, we DFA'd Kevin Padlo, who kind of sort of got onto the Mariners last year. We called him up at the very end of the season for the last couple of games. He did nothing. And well, now we're DFAing him, but the Mariners, just before we started recording, decided to trade him for cash to the I believe it was the, oh man, now I lost it, but I think it was the Giants, if I'm correct. It was either the Giants or the Padres, but I'm 95% sure it was the Giants. For some reason, I lost that note here, but I think it's the Giants. And then in some more relevant news to the actual Mariners Major League squad, we activated Luis Torrens from the COVID list, and we decided to option Mike Ford back down. That's who we called up in place of Torrens. Mike Ford didn't actually see any playing time, and the Mariners just designated Mike Ford for assignment. So whether that's because he rejected his option or they didn't, I'm not exactly sure why they decided to designate Ford for assignment kind of out of nowhere there. Maybe they just didn't want to send a almost 30-year-old back to AAA, but who knows? So we'll see what happens there if we trade him or if he just hits waivers or whatnot. And then the last transaction that's not technically a transaction, but is also sort of, is Scott Service, also returned from COVID and managed his first game back since that today for the first game of the Rays series. So he made the trip. So we got Torrens and we got Service back so far, but still waiting to get Seawald and still waiting to get Haniger back. Jake, all pretty minor news here. Is there anything that you think stands out enough to mention here?
Not really. None of this is too big. Kind of like, I guess an interesting thing is Penn Murphy, like today would have been a really good day to play him.
Yeah.
An 8-0 lead. Like the chances of Murphy blowing that are 0. You know, he could maybe give up 4 runs like a certain someone who we'll talk about later. But I mean, like, it was probably the worst you can get. You know, he gives up 4 runs, you could take him out. But like, it would have been nice to get him in for an inning.
Yeah.
Today, but
I mean, he was really pitching well this year with AAA. So, I mean, maybe he ends up being a solid reliever. I don't know. We could use him more down the line. We'll probably have more injuries this year. But like I said, the amount of pitchers eventually will be shrinking the roster size. So, I mean, we'll see. That could make it potentially harder for him to eventually get in there. Some quick news, not official transactions, but news related to the Mariners. Mitch Haniger and Paul Seawald today warmed up with the team. Didn't get into the game. They have not been activated from the COVID list, but they were warming up on the field around the team. So clearly they are asymptomatic. Otherwise, they wouldn't be around the team. They obviously made the trip to Tampa Bay, and hopefully they'll be activated tomorrow or the next day. The Mariners have been playing very well, but without who was arguably our best reliever last year and arguably our best hitter last year outside of maybe like Ty France and, well, really, maybe that's it. So 2 really big pieces of this team that we've been missing, but we've still been playing well without, obviously would just be great to add back to the team. Should be getting them soon. No immediate injury updates on anyone. That includes Ken Giles, Sergio Romo, Kyle Lewis, Evan White, anyone that you can think of that's injured right now. The only one that I would have anything to really say about is probably Romo is probably not too far away because he was only put on the 10-day injured list with a minor finger injury. But outside of that, not much there. And then the next piece of news, which is the bigger one here, Ty France was named AL Co-Player of the Week. He was the other player was Miguel Cabrera, who had his 3,000th hit. So it was like a legacy thing. That's why he was put in there. But France is the actual player of the week. He so far this season leads the MLB with a 235 WRC plus WAR 100 is average. Just a quick note, JP Crawford is 5th in the MLB in that, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, if you look at what Ty France has done so far this year, obviously he plays a Gold Glove caliber defense right now. I mean, the dude is great defensively, but that is not what won him the award. What won him the award is his insane offense so far this season. If you look at his stats so far this season, including today against the Rays, He already is registered a 1.2 WAR, so he's already got that going on. But so far this season, he's only 27. He's already got 24 hits, just 74 at bats, 16 games. He's already got 3 doubles, 5 home runs, 20 RBIs now, or make that 21 RBIs after this Rays game, but came into the game with 19 RBIs.
Oh,
But going into the Rays game, which is what I have the statistics here for, is a 375 batting average, 456 on base, and an OPS of 1.116, as well as an OPS plus of 236. So he has been nothing but absolutely fantastic. He obviously had the big home run in the last game of the Royal Series and in the game before that. And he had the 5-hit game and the other day where he drove in 5 RBIs. That was kind of the catalyst for this award, but he's just been so awesome early on, and obviously the great defense and hitting right there in the 2-hole for the Mariners, especially helping this Mariners offense along without a guy like Mitch Haniger in there has been really big. So it's been really cool to see. Jake, I want to hear your thoughts on him, but I also want to raise the question of, what maybe do you think the ceiling is for him this season as a whole? Like, he's obviously not going to be this elite all year long, but he had a really consistent season last year, nearly at 300, almost 20 RBIs or almost 20 home runs. Maybe does even better than that without the wrist injury. So, I mean, what do you think the ceiling is? Great defense, great offense. Is he like maybe a dark horse MVP candidate, Silver Slugger, Gold Glove? Like, what do you see for Ty France?
I think he is more than a dark horse MVP candidate. I think he's a straight up MVP candidate. He's the best hitter in baseball right now. He's got a great glove at first, and he's given the most value to his team. He's on one of the best teams in the league right now, or in the MLB right now. And I believe the Mariners are in first place in the AL.
Yes, I think you would be factual with that statement, unless it's the Blue Jays, actually. Yeah, actually, we are currently tied with the Blue Jays at 11-6, and the Blue Jays are playing a game right now against Houston. Or no, not Houston, sorry. They're playing Boston right now. They're in extra innings. They're tied 5-5. So if they lose this game, then we will be first. If they win, then we will be a very, very close second.
We are also tied with the Yankees.
Correct. However, they are behind Toronto. So
yeah, we're first in the American League right now, looking really good in the AL West. I've seen tons of people hating on the Mariners right now.
Yeah.
Like I saw someone saying, "Oh, the Astros are still there." Well, guess what? The Astros suck.
Astros are after a pretty bad start. You're right about that.
Jose Altuve needs to retire. But we have.
And you said it.
We have the highest run differential in the MLB, not the MLB, in the American League. Whoa! I just found a crazy
fifth highest.
Hold on,
fifth highest run differential.
This has nothing to do with the Mariners, but I have to bring up this stat. So, speaking of teams with crazy like run differentials,
yeah,
Pittsburgh's 8-9 right now, which like wow, Pittsburgh. But they're ahead of 7-10 Chicago, and Chicago has a positive run differential at 17. The team in first in that division has an even differential of 0, which is the Brewers. But Pittsburgh is 8-9 with a negative 32 run differential.
So in case you fans have not heard, the Pittsburgh Pirates lost to the Cubs the other day, 21-0. 20 that's not a football score. I'm not talking about the Steelers versus the Bears. I'm talking about the Pirates and the Cubs. And by the way, Pittsburgh won that series, but they came out with a double-digit negative run differential out of the series because they lost 21-0. And so that's why sometimes maybe one game can make you overreact to some things. And in case you're wondering, Milwaukee in that division has an even run differential because they're a pitching team, not an offensive team. So they'll win a lot of games by not a ton of runs because of their pitching. But anyways, back to Ty
Either way,
France.
yes, back to Ty France. We have a 22 positive run differential, which is um weird for the Mariners because last year we had a negative run differential. It's interesting. Another stat I'm seeing here for the Mariners is we're expected to be 11-6, whereas like Toronto is expected to be 9-8. So we're expected to be the top team in the American League right now. So it's not like we've been pulling out crazy wins that haven't been, convincing really. But either way, Ty France is the best hitter in the league right now. He's hitting homers, he's getting base hits, he's walking, he's doing everything you need a hitter to do. And he's got good hitters around him, which gives him the RBIs to be really good. He's got Adam Frazier getting on base in front of him. In the back order of the lineup, like Tom Murphy, and those guys are getting on base a lot. Don't underestimate Tom Murphy. He's hitting like 400 right now.
Yes, Tom Murphy has been very good.
So, yeah, Ty France is top 5 MVP candidate right now.
Yeah, I think you're right on with that. And I think obviously you add in the defense and the fact that he plays first base every day. And last year he was only 12 games shy of a full season, and that's with hitting the 10-day IL with a wrist injury. I mean, the dude's probably going to play almost 162 games, if not 162 games, if he stays healthy, hit right in the middle of the order for a team in the Mariners that should be very good. And if he can be as consistent as last year offensively and even step it up, not just because he's improving as a hitter, but because he's not going to have to deal with that injury, and because he knows that he's going to show up to the ballpark and be a first baseman every day, and where he's going to be in the order every day. I mean, it should allow for him to really blossom this season. And he's only 27 years old. So like, don't start thinking that he's like a late blooming, like pop off for a year or two kind of guy. He really is a dude that just kind of needed an opportunity to shine. He wasn't getting that with the Padres. He comes to the Mariners, and we just continue to finesse the living crap out of the Padres in recent years through trades. So now we'll move on to one more quick note about the Mariners through news, is that the MLB recently released another round of power rankings, and the Mariners for the first time this season cracked the top 10. They also cracked the poll that the MLB held for, who's the best team that's in double-digit wins to this point. And they showed all the teams that were in double digits. And there you go. There were the Mariners up there. The interesting note is that the National League West had 4 teams, because for some reason the Rockies have been playing well, but there were the Mariners up there with teams like the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, and a bunch of other good teams. So it's been really cool to see the recognition that the Mariners have been getting from the MLB recently. Obviously, Ty France with the award, and Ty France, getting the posts on Instagram a lot more frequently from the MLB because of that. So it's really cool to see the Mariners up there, and obviously like Andres Munoz and guys like that who are kind of popping off and showing some electric stuff also helps you get on the highlight reels of Instagram pages and YouTube channels like the MLB. So that's pretty cool to see that recognition. I want to mention just a couple of quick notes from around the organization, just recognize some guys that have done some cool things. So a couple of last year's draft picks, our 19th rounder from last year, who's a catcher, Charlie Welch out of Arkansas. He's 22 years old. He's homered in 3 straight games now, including today for Everett, which is our high A team. He's been hitting really well. Bryce Miller, who was our 4th round pick last year at Texas A&M. He's 23 years old, right-handed pitcher. Won the Northwest League Pitcher of the Week. So that would be pretty much the equivalent to winning like a American League Pitcher of the Week-ish award. And then also at the low A level, William Fleming, who was our 11th round pick in 2021, who's only 23 years old, also won Pitcher of the Week for the Cal League. So some guys in the minor league system doing some good things, winning some awards is cool to see. That pretty much does it for all the news and notes there. We'll dive right into the recap now, so we can talk about the team a little bit more in depth. So we'll dive like usual. We'll quickly go through the results. We'll start with the Texas series. So you're coming off a series win against the Houston Astros, going into another division series against a team that we pretty much agreed in our last podcast, we should be able to take care of. We should have won all 3 games, but we'll start with game 1. So game 1, we win 6-2, was another good offensive showing. It started off early in the first inning. Eugenio Suarez hits a 3-run bomb. And then Jared Kelenic hits his second home run of the year. We have a 4-0 lead. Then it's 4-1 with a Semien sac fly. Semien hits another double. It's 4-2. But then we decide to add on a little bit. Abe Toro hits his first home run of the year, which was really good to see for the offense. And we end up locking it down for the win. Robbie Ray goes 6 innings, only gives up 2 runs. The bullpen was good with our trio of Steckenrider, Sewald, Castillo. Really good games out of Suarez with the 3 RBIs, but we didn't have anyone with more than 1 hit, but still a good start to the series. We win 4-2 in the second game. This game was another interesting one. Early, Cal Raleigh reaches on a fielding error, which scores a run early. And then in the 5th inning, Ty France RBI single, JP Crawford sac fly, and then eventually to Julio Rodriguez single. We have a 4-0 lead. Diego Castillo makes everyone a little bit nervous and gives up 2 runs in the top of the 9th, but end up holding on, and that secures the series win. And then the depressing game, which was the 3rd game, obviously we took a 5-0 lead in the 1st inning with Ty France, with a Ty France 2-run bomb and a JP Crawford 3-run shot. And then we give up a couple of runs in the 2nd, and it's 5-2. We cruise along and get to the 5th inning, and the Rangers eventually take the lead, capped off by a Nick Solak home run. We're down by a run. We end up coming back. We tie the game. Suarez ties the game up with a single, and then we put in Drew Steckenrider, who's been middling as of late. He gives up a pair of runs. We cannot come back, and we end up dropping the series finale. So a lot more offense in that series, 4 runs in each game. Obviously, the pitching, unfortunately, did not hold up in that 3rd game. The starter in that game was Marco Gonzalez, who gave up 6 runs, but only 2 earned runs. There were some errors in that game from, especially the most notable one was from JP Crawford. Jake, your thoughts on the series as a whole versus Texas?
Yeah, I thought it was really productive. The offense went off. Pitching looked okay. I wasn't able to watch the game we lost. I had classes during then. But yeah, our offense went off. Pitching looked okay. We took care of a team that's quite frankly bad. They picked up Corey Seager, who's good, and they picked up Semien, who is definitely not good right now. And their pitching is terrible. So we did what we should do. Just kind of got unlucky in a game. But winning a series, 2 wins to 1 is a 66% winning percentage. And if you can keep that up over an entire season, you're pretty much in the playoffs.
That's very true. And I thought that the one troubling trend from that series, and that I've kind of seen recently from the Mariners, despite all the good offenses, they've sort of had a little bit of a tendency to have a big inning in games. Like, for instance, in today's Rays game, that we will dive more into the Rays series, obviously, in our next episode, but just that was evident again today. It's like we have a 7-run offense, or we have a 7-run inning, but in the other 8, we only put 1 on the board. So, overall scoring the runs in general is all we need to do. It's just an interesting trend that we kind of, as an offense, we put a couple on the board here and there, and we'll have like one really big inning that will propel us forward, which can work, but sometimes sort of like, winning 1-run games and whatnot can sometimes tend to be a little bit less of a consistent, thing that you can keep up. But overall, I think just thanks to the offensive numbers and whatnot, especially from that Rangers series, we should be looking good. But we'll talk about that more in a second. We'll dive into the Royals series here. So we went, obviously, sweep this series, our first series sweep of the season when we're facing an atrocious team in the Kansas City Royals. They have a bad offense. They have a bad pitching staff. They're pretty much bottom of the league in every pitching category and hitting category, which is obviously a recipe for disaster. At least Texas was high up in some hitting categories. But we'll dive into them. The first game, Mariners win 4-1. Chris Flexen was on his game. He went 7 innings, only gave up 1 earned run, and he only threw 84 pitches to get through 7 innings, but they decided to pull him for the bullpen, who gave up no runs. But in this game, we got on him in the 4th inning with a Julio Rodriguez double and then a Jared Kelenic triple. Was kind of a cool thing to see. We put up all of our runs in that inning. Salvador Perez hit a solo shot in that game, but that was the only damage they did. Before Andres Munoz eventually ended up locking it down. It was also cool to see us put up a few runs on the Royals' only really good pitcher so far this season, which is Brad Keller. The next game, we ended up winning 13-7, which is a very uncharacteristic game for the Mariners, especially if you watched them last year. Matt Brash was on the mound a little bit. One of his rougher starts of the season, 3 runs over 4 1/3. He ended up walking 4 more batters. He's been having some issues with location and walks recently. We ended up using a total of 7 pitchers in this game too, and we only used 3 of them for an inning or more, or 4 of them for an inning or more. A lot of guys kind of pitched for a short amount of time. But overall, I mean, we did some good damage. We put the hammer down on Bubic, who's not very good, and that was their starter. We ended up making the Royals have to use 8 pitchers in this game. Started off, we were down 1-0 early, but that's not a big deal because JP Crawford ends up giving us a 2-1 lead in the first inning. When we first get up to bat with his 2nd home run of the year, Jared Kelenic RBI single, Ty France single, we're up 4-1. And then Toro grounded in, or hit a ground rule double. We're up 5-1, and then you skip up to the 5th. They put a couple of runs on the board. We're only up by a run. Suarez hits a double, drives in 1. We're up 6-4, and then the Royals start to catch fire. They hit a home run with Carlos Santana and then a double in the 7th. They have a 1-run lead, and that's when they would stop scoring. Ty France ends up driving in a run. It's tied 7-7. We get all the way to the bottom of the 8th. And Julio Rodriguez gets walked with the bases loaded with the fans chanting his name. We're up by a run. Winker doubles in a pinch after coming into pinch hit in that game, 10-7. And then Ty France caps off the game that he would end up having 5 hits, including a home run and 5 RBIs with a 3-run home run. And we end up winning this one 13-7. Matt Koch finishes the game off on the mound. And then we're up 2-0 in the series, looking to lock it up. And then it was a close one. This one went into extra innings in the 3rd game of the series, which we would win 5-4. Ty France right away, his first at bat of the next game is a 2-run homer. So that's back-to-back at bats and obviously back-to-back games with home runs for Ty France. They end up tying it at 2. We get all the way to the bottom of the 6th. Then JP Crawford gives us the lead. Then Dozier ties it with a home run. Then Benintendi gives the Royals the lead. Then we tie it with a Jesse Winker sac fly. We get all the way into the bottom of the 12th inning before Jesse Winker would break his bat for about the 15th time of the game and hit a walk-off RBI single. And the Mariners win this one 5-4. On the mound in this game was Robbie Ray. Another good outing from Ray. 6 innings, just 2 earned runs, 5 Ks. Only 2 relievers ended up giving up any runs, and only one of them gave up an earned run. Festa, Swanson, Koch, and Ramirez all were able to hold the Royals off the boards, especially Koch and Ramirez were big in that game in the extra innings. And we end up sweeping the Royals. So that's what we're supposed to do, facing bad pitching and a bad offense. We end up getting the job done. It's the MLB, so obviously guys can have good games even when they don't have good stats or they're not a good team. So it was good that we got out of there with those wins, even though one was a dog fight and one was a extra innings fight. But we get the job done and we show off some more impressive offense, which was really fun to see, especially that 13-run game. Jake, just looking at the box score and kind of seeing the numbers there, what kind of impressions do you have of just the Mariners taking care of business against a team that they are supposed to beat?
Ty France MVP. That pretty much sums up this series. Ty France went off. JP Crawford hit home runs. Like, I don't understand why he all of a sudden was like, hey, watch this. I'm gonna absolutely crush a couple balls in the series, even though even though I never really swing that hard. And Ty France hits a couple moonshots, and just Jesse Winker comes up clutch, and Suarez is clutch, and clutch pitching. Jared Kelenic absolutely guns down what was it, Benintendi, a third.
He did, yes. That was a beautiful play.
Guns him down, pretty much saves the game. Adam Frazier looks really good. Couple guys still don't look very good. Like Rodriguez looks good here and then, every here and then. You know, he's got his rookie struggles. He hasn't had a multi-hit game yet, has he?
No, he has, I think.
Either way, he still doesn't have a home run. Kelenic is very hot and cold, mostly cold.
Yeah.
Cal Raleigh. Tom Murphy needs to play more. But yeah, lots of good offense. The pitching, the bullpen, we talked about it before recording. There's 3 guys who are kind of like holding the bullpen back.
Yeah.
And that can be seen in a lot of games. And then Steckenrider just kind of comes in and gives up runs lately. Which,
yeah.
I mean, he doesn't have that great of stuff. He's just mostly like a really good location pitcher. And lately his location has been very good at, getting in the strike zone right down the middle. But besides that, he's been, giving up jacks and hard hits. And so hopefully the bullpen can, turn it around with those couple of guys. Most of the guys look really good, but there are those couple that don't look so hot. And then it's nice to see Chris Flexen turn it around. And then Matt Brash, while he walks a lot of guys, he has this ability to just get out of tough situations, which is nice.
Yes, all are very good things to see. I want to dive into quickly where the Mariners stand before we get into our preview of what's going on. So right now, the Mariners are first place in the American League West, and obviously the standings I'm about to read to you are going to include the game today that the Mariners played against the Rays, just because obviously the internet automatically has already updated it. But they're 11-6 after today's game against the Rays. Plus 23 run differential is best in the division. The Astros are 4th in the division. They're one of only 2 teams in the division that's under 500 currently. They're Mariners 8-2 in their last 10. They're also 2nd in the American League because Toronto just won. They just walked it off in extra innings against the Red Sox. So 2nd to only Toronto by half a game. And yeah, I mean, we're looking good in the standings. As we look at some big outstanding team statistics, we're first in the ML. These numbers were going into the Rays series today, so before the game today, just because that's when I gathered them up. So Mariners first in the MLB in WRC plus, which is wins, runs created plus, which is an advanced statistic for basically run scoring overall as a team. 11th in average at 240, but I mean, when you look at a number like 2nd in the MLB and on base percentage at 340, 4th lowest strikeout rate in the MLB, 5th in the MLB in home runs, 6th in the MLB in runs, and 9th in the MLB in slugging percentage, the average isn't as big of a deal. And when you look at a guy like Winker, who has a bad average right now, but leads the league in walks and still is hitting the ball really hard and is getting unlucky a lot of the time, and you add in great pitching and a lot of power, it all kind of works itself out. When you look at the pitching numbers so far, fifth in team ERA at 2.96 as a team, which is just insane right now at this point in the season. Best bullpen ERA. Fifth in WHIP at 1.12, ninth in opponent batting average at 2.19. And we're also going into the series where fifth in the MLB in run differential at +18. But after today, we're obviously up to +23. And Jake just added a note that we have better attendance than the Athletics, which is true because the Athletics, whose fans are currently protesting their owner, average around 3,000 fans a game, which is worse than most AA games. So.
Oh, are you sure they're just starting their protest because their attendances look like that forever?
That's also true, but I also, if I was an A's fan, would not want to go to that stadium because I heard that it is a dumpster fire. Not only is it an eyesore to watch on TV, which, by the way, it's almost hard to watch the Mariners play at Tropicana Field, which is the Rays' home field, because it is so ugly and it's like the nastiest field ever. There's no windows, there's no light, it doesn't open. It's just a straight dome with no sunlight. So it's in Florida and it doesn't have the ability to be open, which is just terrible. It's also it's in St. Petersburg. It's not in Tampa Bay, which makes no sense at all. So it's harder for fans to go to games even because it's in Tampa. Both of those teams are either going to be selling the team, which hopefully they both do, and maybe they relocate, or maybe hopefully they just get new stadiums or relocate. Either way, I just need them to have stadiums that are not total eyesores because the Mariners have to play them both every year, and I hate those stadiums.
Hey man, it's really exciting to watch the Mariners score 7 runs in an inning and not a single person in the stands is cheering.
The worst part about it is that they both still have on-field bullpens. So like they still have bullpen pitchers either warming up or sitting right on the side of the field where they could easily get nailed with a foul ball. It's like, how is that?
I'll pay to watch.
Or you look at the A's stadium and they have like a football field length of a foul territory, and it's impossible to ever hit a foul ball because everything gets popped up and caught. It's honestly ridiculous. They should have a code for it or shut it down. And I don't know. But anyways, when you look at these numbers, they obviously all are to go up after this first game that we put up 8 more runs against the Rays. The team is looking very good. And so we'll dive into the preview here. The Mariners have a 9-game road trip. Well, actually, is that correct? Or do they play 4 games against the Rays? I apologize. Nope, they do play 3 games against the Rays. So it is a 9-game road trip. They play 3 against Tampa Bay. They won the first today, but then they go to Miami for 3. They'll stick around in Florida, and then they will take off to Houston before coming back home on May 5th. So it's a nice little Florida vacation. And then they have to go down to Houston and hopefully beat up on the still middling Astros. As we preview the series, I'm not going to be able to preview every single starting pitching matchup, but I'll show some quick statistics. I mean, you look at the Rays, obviously, as you saw today, they use a lot of bullpen pitchers, and they also have the lowest fastball percentage in the MLB, so it's going to be a lot of breaking pitches, and they have some good young offensive players. Miami is much more of a pitching team. Currently, they are 13th in ERA, but they have some pretty good pitching numbers. Their offense has actually been better than expected, but they don't slug a ton, so they're 19th in runs scored. So that should be a team that we're able to handle pretty well. And then obviously we take on the middling Astros. Maybe they'll have Altuve back by then. He's been injured, but I mean, they're
good. I hope they do. I want to watch him strike out 15 more times.
They're in the bottom third of the league in runs on base, batting average. They do hit a lot of home runs, but slugging still yet they are not very good in. They're also in the bottom third of the league in WHIP and batting average against, and they're just barely not in the bottom third of the league in ERA. Their bullpen has been pretty atrocious this year, and their offense has been pretty bad this year. Guys like Kyle Tucker and Altuve and Yuli Gurriel have all been pretty disappointing for them.
Jose Altuve is hitting a hole 167, 6 hits, 1 home run, three RBIs. This is the pinnacle of Astros baseball where you can't read the signs.
This is what everyone expected to happen when they stopped being able to read the signs, but it's still
6 hits, 5 walks, 10 strikeouts. I rest my case.
honestly, the Astros, as much as I absolutely despise them, I mean, like obviously the numbers and the actual performance has still been good the last few years. Obviously, they're in their World Series last year. But I mean, they're the team. I mean, I'm not worried about the A's being a surprise contender. I don't think they'll be good. And the Angels, I don't think they're going to be healthy enough or consistent enough throughout the season. And I think the Mariners will be able to beat them. I think the Astros are obviously the team that we have to trump because they have been the best team in the division for so long, whether it was legit or not with cheating, but they're the team that we have to surpass. Or in the early going, we're off to a good start here. I mean, we've won a series against them. We also are several games ahead of them in the early going. So
someone needs to give me a stat line of the Astros when they play against teams that are using the electric signals versus hand signals. Give me the stats. Someone give me the stats. I need those.
I don't know those stats.
Give me Jose Altuve's stats. I'm not saying you. I'm saying someone. Like if you're listening, put it out on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Give me those stats. I need to know whether or not my hunch is true.
In case you're wondering, we do hold a lot of grudges here. So holding a grudge against the Astros will never die until Altuve retires and Brantley retires and Yuli Gurriel and Alex Bregman retire. So until they're all gone.
I don't think Brantley was on that team. Was he? Wasn't Brantley on the Indians?
Maybe he wasn't on that team. I can't remember.
I think you're thinking of George Springer. Who everyone
George Springer, Carlos Correa. Yeah, I don't really understand those guys, but you know, it is what it is, and all that the Mariners can do to combat that, since the league is never going to punish them, is beat them. So that is what hopefully we will do to cap off the road trip. The last thing I want to do is sort of a recap preview-ish thing to talk about, and that is name one surprise for good and for bad, for better and for worse. So both of us, Jake, I want you to think of this real quick. It can be a team stat or a team trend or something you've seen from the Mariners or something like that. It could be a player. It could be a specific play if you want, but just a really good surprise that you've seen so far and a really bad surprise. So I'll go first. My bad surprise so far, as I was going to say Jesse Winker because of the low average, but he's still getting on base a lot. He's been pretty clutch in general.
And he hits the ball 100 miles an hour straight at fielders.
He also hits the crap out of the ball. So I was also then thinking, you know, Cal Raleigh, because he hasn't been close to the ball. It looks like he's playing against oh man, I can't even remember the name of that baseball. The one where you hold it with the special grip and it does all the weird curves and dips and dives and stuff. But the one that I ended up picking was Jared Kelenic, because I mean, I was really hoping, I don't know if I was expecting it, but I was really hoping for a resurgence after a not so great first year that he ended up finishing off hitting pretty well. And I have not seen it so far, so it's been pretty disappointing and a little bit surprising, but mostly disappointing. My really good surprise so far has been Eugenio Suarez, because, I mean, I was really hoping that he could recapture some of that magic that he had, you know, with Cincinnati back in 2018, 2019, even, you know, 2017, Eugenio Suarez, or, you know, that sort of player. But So far, he's been really good. I mean, so far this season, he has an OPS plus of 167. His OPS is just barely below 900. His on base is at 359. He has 10 RBIs, 3 home runs, hitting 255, which is a pretty good average for him. And he's played really good defense too. I've seen him make a diving play. I've seen him make some cool pop-up plays. He hasn't made, I don't think he's made an error yet. And so far, he's been really solid. So, yeah, and also he's only 4 home runs away from 200 for his career. He's also only 99 hits away from 1,000 for his career. So we could potentially be seeing some big milestones from Eugenio Suarez here in his first year as a Mariner. So that's pretty cool, and it's been a pleasant surprise so far to this point in the season. I also feel like so far he's been, in the early going it was rough, but especially on this last homestand, I feel like he's been doing a much better job. Making more contact. He's hitting some singles. He's been much more consistent. He's taking his walks and cutting down on that swing and miss rate, trying less to just force hit home runs and try for more of a line drive, hit the ball hard approach, which I feel like has really worked out for him so far. So who are your two surprises?
So for positive surprise, I'm gonna go with Logan Gilbert because we haven't talked about him today, and he's currently first in the MLB in ERA. I don't know if this still holds true, but he's first in the American League, at least in ERA plus, which is like just kind of like WRC plus or OPS plus.
It's like OPS plus, but for pitchers.
Yeah. And I don't know where the stat went because my baseball reference page died on me, but please reload. Come on, man. It's in the 600s. I can tell you that. 100 is average. And he's not even first in the MLB because that goes to Pablo Lopez. And my baseball reference page died. So
it's okay. I mean, he has a 664 ERA plus.
Yeah, 664. Here we go. He's got a point. This isn't updated, but
it's not right. He has a 0.40 ERA.
Yeah, so his ERA plus isn't right either. It's going to be even higher once Baseball Reference updates their page. But like, you look at him compared to every other pitcher in the MLB in the American League, he's better than all of them by at least 3 times. Like Zach Plesac is a second in ERA plus, which is 241, which is like a third. So if we go back and I look at the leaders, Pablo Lopez leads the MLB with a 774.
Yeah.
And if I real quick find the standard pitching for MLB for NL players, and I look at ERA plus, Pablo Lopez, who has a very similar ERA, at least at the time of this being updated at 0.52, 17 strikeouts, which is very similar to Logan Gilbert's stats. He's got the 744 ERA plus, but then like second, you have like 396 in the 300s. So he's at least twice as good as the next best pitcher. And he's very close to Pablo Lopez. And I would assume that Pablo Lopez is going to pitch very soon. And I really would love to see a game with Pablo Lopez versus Logan Gilbert, because that would be insane.
Actually, let me check if that does line up. So Gilbert pitched today. So if we get 1, 2, 3, 4, so Gilbert's next start is against Miami on May 1st.
I don't think it lines up.
Sorry, it's going to be Logan Gilbert versus Sandy Alcantara.
Still a good pitching matchup, but Lopez looks very good, especially after his last start against St. Louis, where he had 9 strikeouts and no runs given up in 7 innings. So
yeah,
hopefully hopefully we can kill that and make Gilbert the number one pitcher in the MLB for sure.
Luckily, we get to avoid Pablo Lopez. We face Eliezer Hernandez with Matt Brash, and then Jesus Lazardo with Robbie Ray, which is kind of like the same dude pitching. And then obviously Alcantara and Gilbert, who are also very similar, tall, lanky, hard throwing right-handers. So
Yes.
anyways, so your bad surprise.
Yeah, my bad surprise will be the starting pitching has disappointed me. If I look at the ERA for the AL, Logan Gilbert is number one. Logan Gilbert hasn't disappointed, obviously, but it's the rest of the starting pitching. Flexen and Robbie Ray are just below average in ERA. And Brash and Gonzalez aren't even in the top 25, which means they're well below average. And you would expect guys like Robbie Ray to be really high on the strikeout list. But Robbie Ray has pitched more innings than almost everyone on this list and is not very high in strikeouts. And oh my goodness, Rafael Montero has more strikeouts than Matt Brash and Marco Gonzalez. So what is happening?
That's funny.
Rafael Montero has 13 strikeouts in 7 innings. And where did he go? He currently has not given up a run. So we made a mistake. But either way, the pitching has been disappointing. Matt Festa looks really bad. Just looking at these stats, but Flexen has a 3.63 ERA. Marco has a 3.29, but he doesn't qualify in innings. And Matt Brash has a 4.2 ERA. So it's still really good, but like what's disappointing to me is they're not excelling at what they're good at. So Robbie Ray hasn't struck guys out. Brash, no expectations, but Flexen struggled a lot. He's turning around, so maybe my opinion on this will change very quickly. But Gonzalez has been getting hit around, giving up homers when he's typically a ground ball pitcher, sinker ball. Give up a couple of hits, but keep everything in the ballpark. So the starting pitching has disappointed me a little bit.
Fair. It's very fair. However, I do think that the pitchers that have struggled early are turning it around. At the very least, we're still winning for one, and the offense is turning it around. And Brash is Brash, but like if we have struggles or anything like that, there's always like George Kirby can be called up. He's been elite in the minor leagues so far, so he's always an option. If Brash ends up being more of like a reliever guy with his only 2 pitches sort of combo, but we'll see how that works out. And obviously Ray, even though he hasn't racked up the strikeout numbers that we've hoped for so far that he has racked up, even when he's been bad in his career, at least he's eating up a lot of innings and still being pretty consistent. Even though he's given up a few runs, he has still gotten deep into games, been very efficient with his pitch count, and is giving our team a chance. And with the extra offense, it actually works out. In previous years, like last year, if we had Robbie Ray pitching the way he is right now, it wouldn't work out because our offense wouldn't have gotten him enough runs to win the games. But now that we actually have some offense going on, it can work out. So you just hope to see more strikeouts, because once he gets those strikeouts back, he should be able to eliminate a lot of those runs.
And one more thing worth noting is the reason I brought up like Gonzalez and Brash not qualifying it by innings is that the pitchers aren't really going deep enough for my liking. I would like to see more 6 and 7 inning games than like 4 and 5.
Yeah. We're actually pretty high in the league in that category,
Well, mostly
Robbie Ray has not gone less than 6. Flexen just went 7.
What I'm more talking about Brash and Marco.
It would be good to see Marco be able to get deeper into games. he had that really, 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 really good start against Houston, but the other two starts, the errors have not
It's
helped.
because Houston couldn't see his signs.
Yeah. Anyways, the other two starts, he has kind of been hit around a lot. The errors have not helped at all. So he has a lot of unearned runs this season. But, obviously his first start was only 2 innings. His last start was not particularly long, and he gave up more runs than you would like. And obviously we blew that big lead to the Rangers. So hopefully he can get it turned around. But he's consistently over his career more of a back end through rotation, sort of right around 4 kind of ERA guy. And if that's what he is this year, with the offense being better and the rest of the staff improving, like Gilbert and Ray and Flexen, I think that could work out for us. That pretty much does it for most of our news and notes. Make sure, as always, that you're following your Instagram page, because we're going to keep you updated with news throughout the week and, scores of the games and our thoughts on stuff and anything that happens in the MLB or news from the Mariners transactions and whatnot, all that good stuff. And then follow the Twitter. Make sure that you share this with anyone that you know. Check out the YouTube, check out the Spotify if you're on the other one listening to this or watching this, if you want a different experience. And yeah, so it's another successful episode. That's 14 now, and we're going to keep on rolling throughout the season. Mariners are going to keep on rolling throughout the season. So for your hosts, Jacob Westfall and Luke Westfall, as always, peace out, Mariners fans.